Hello, members of chess.com. I am Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov, and today we're going to talk about typical plans in the positions with opposite side castling. Though the theme of this lecture is, as I mentioned, we're going to touch on many other subjects. The game, which will illustrate those principles, is a game between two former world champions, Boris Spassky and Tigran Petrosian. It was played during their 1969 World Championship match. The game started with the Sicilian defense, and Petrosian played so-called Najdorf variation of Sicilian, and Spassky played bishop g5, the most principal and sharp move. Nowadays, black almost exclusively plays e6, but at this time, knight bd7 was actually a more popular line, and that's what Petrosian played. Spassky continued with bishop c4. What makes this game great is the clarity with which Spassky played the entire game. He just followed very basic principles. And with his last move, bishop c4, he develops the last minor piece, his bishop. And now Petrosian played queen a5. Now, by playing this move, Petrosian creates two threats at the same time. So please pause the recording for a second and try to identify both black threats. I hope you saw this correctly. One threat is queen takes bishop, and another threat is knight takes pawn. There are several ways white can stop both threats at the same time, but there is only one which is the best. It's true that white can simply take the knight. However, this move will not be the best because knight on d7 will take back and the bishop is now open. Second option is to move bishop back, but this will be a really bad move, which is kind of amazing. Doesn't happen very often that move like that is just gonna lose the game, but it is a losing move. Again, pause for a second and try to find a winning move for black. After bishop d2, the drawback, a big drawback of this move, is that not only white withdraws his bishop from a good position, he also blocks the queen. And all of a sudden, two of those pieces become unprotected. And black can take advantage of this by playing queen c5 and attacking those pieces both at the same time. White moves the knight, he loses the bishop. White moves the bishop, he loses the knight. So bishop d2 is just a losing move. The best move, however, is queen d2. Not only white stops both black threats, he also develops a piece at the same time. So it's kind of ideal grandmaster move. Black played h6. And now situation is a little bit different compared to a move ago. Just a move ago, I said bishop takes f6 is not a good move. However, here, since black wasted a move on forcing this bishop either to go away or trade, trading is okay because you're winning time to complete your development. Finally, the question comes, how do I castle? Can I castle king side? Can I castle queen side? Which one is better? Many of my students whom I show this position prefer the king side castle because they were saying, if I castle queen side, this queen puts a lot of pressure on my queen side. So therefore, I would like to play safe and castle king side. Here is a good advice when you are not sure whether your opponent's attack is strong or not. How many pieces are in the attack? How many pieces are in the defense? It's clear that this queen, black queen on a5, is the only piece which is in the attack. And meanwhile, white has 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces which are close to the king and make sure that the real attack doesn't happen. So queenside is a better move, mainly because you bring rook on the half-open file with a tempo. If white would castle kingside, most likely he will have to play this move at some point. But with castling queenside, the rook is there right away. And timing is extremely important in open positions. Now black plays e6. Usually, I think the opening part is over when one of the sides develop all his minor pieces and castles. And this is the situation right now on the board. The key of this position is that the black king is in the center and white is ahead of development. And one of the concepts in those situations is when your opponent's king is in the center and you are ahead of development, try to open position up. The way to open the position is to push your pawns and open files on the opponent's king. And the only way to do this is to play f4 and e5 and try to get the center open. However, this pawn on e5 needs some help. So with rook h1, Spassky brings the last piece in the game. If we look at this position, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces already in the game. And this rook is the only piece which is sitting in the corner and not participating. So by playing rook h1, he brings the last piece in the game and he's ready to play f4, e5, an open position in the center to attack black king. Black played bishop e7, Spassky played f4, and understandably Petrosian castles, removing his king from the center. And here we reach a very important moment. Like, why did Spassky try to put his pieces in the center and made a plan of attacking in the center if he knew that Petrosian is going to go on the king side anyway, if he's going to castle? The answer could be found if we will study atypical plans in those opposite side castling positions. A typical plan is a pawn storm. When your opponent is castling on the side different from yours, in this position, black castle king side, white castle queen side, a typical plan is to push your pawns with the idea to open files on the opponent's king. Usually in those situations, the game remains a race. White is attacking on one side, black is attacking on the other side. Who will succeed first in opening files and getting to the opponent's king? However, in this concrete position, white has a head start in this race. Now, try to use your imagination and imagine that this pawn is not on h6. The pawn is on h7. In this case, white will need 5 moves to make a contact with black's pawns. White is going to push his pawns 1, 2, 3, 4, and only after move g6, white pawns actually will reach black pawns. And this is when the file will eventually be open. Remember, the whole idea of the pawn storm is to open files. And with the pawn on h7, it will take 5 moves to open the file. However, because black pawn is on h6, it takes only 3 moves for white to open the file. White is going to play g4, h4, g5, and when the white pawn will be on g5, it will make a contact with the pawn on h6, and the file will inevitably be open. If black takes on g5 with h-pawn, white will take back with his h-pawn, and the h-file will become open. If white will not take this pawn, if black will not take this pawn, white himself will take on h6, and he will open the g-file. So Spassky knew in advance that castling on the king side will be good for him. So if Petrosian castles on the king side, Spassky is going to have an advantage. So he's happy that Petrosian castled there, and he actually could start a pawn storm right away. But remember, this is World Championship match, the stakes are high, so just in case, Spassky plays two prophylactic moves. Before starting his attack on the king side, he makes sure that Petrosian cannot attack on the queen side at all. So first of all, he makes this move bishop to b3. The idea of this move is that b5, a typical move in those type of positions, is impossible. This move will lose a pawn. Again, pause for a second and try to answer the question. White to move, how can white win a pawn? And the answer is that white can fork queen and a bishop, and after queen c7, knight takes c7, queen takes c7, queen takes d6, white wins a pawn. Therefore, black has to restrain himself from b5 and play something else. Petrosian played rook to e8. It's kind of a strange looking move. However, as we will see later, this is a part of Petrosian's defensive plan. Spassky played another prophylactic move, king b1. This is a very typical Sicilian move in similar positions. One of the ideas of this move is a pure defensive move, but there is also an idea which sometimes is useful in terms of attacking. The idea is that in some, like I will play a random move for black just to show you what the idea is sometimes. Sometimes white can play this move knight d5, and now the contact between queens is initiated, and if queen takes d2, white has in-between move knight takes c7 check. In this particular position, I don't think it's so dangerous for black, because after rook takes c7, rook takes d2, material is even. We can maybe speculate that this pawn is weak, and maybe white can, after knight f3, put the pressure on this pawn. But one way or another, Petrosian decided to avoid this, and he just simply played bishop f8. All right, now the preparatory phase is over, and it started to attack. G4 is, of course, impossible because white is going to lose a pawn. So the question is, how do I prepare G4? I can play H3, I can play Rook G1, I can play Queen E2. What is the best? I hope you made your mind, and now let's see which move did Spassky make. And Spassky played G4. Wow, at this point, you say, what is this grandmaster doing? But apparently you didn't know me well enough. I very often pose trick equations to my students. So when I ask the question, should I play this, this, and that, very often the question is neither one. And G4 is the best move here. It sounds strange. Why just losing a pawn? But if you will recall, what is the idea of a pawn storm in the first place? The idea of the pawn storm is to open files. So Spassky doesn't mind to sacrifice a pawn if it will allow him to open the G file as quickly as possible. Here I have to make a comment about Tigran Petrosian and his playing style. He became world champion mostly of his extremely good defensive skill. He was a very strong positional player who was very good in defending against opponent's attack. However, sometimes when you become too good in something and you have too much success with something, you become overconfident. One of the concepts in chess says the best answer for the flank attack, for the attack on the side, is a counter-attack in the center. So the point is that if there is a race, for instance, your opponent is attacking the king side, you're attacking the queen side, and you see that you are behind in this race, you still have a backup plan. And this backup plan is usually to do something in the center. So here Petrosian could play this move e65, which will strike back in the center. In this case, he will open his bishop on c8, he will break the white's pawn chain, and it will kind of slow down white's check. There is no question that even in this case, white's position will be much better. Possible continuation could be knight f5, e takes f4, queen takes f4. Black probably will play queen e5. But in any case, white is much better. However, it could be relatively better plan compared to what happened in the game. Petrosian took this pawn because he felt, oh, I defended so many of those difficult positions, I think I'm going to handle this time as well. But as we will see, didn't happen. Okay, so the file is open. Spassky puts queen on g2. You might ask a question, why did he start with this move, not with rook g1? We will see the answer on the next move. Black played knight f6, and white played rook g1. White's attacking idea is very simple. He pretty much puts pressure on this open g file. By the way, now you can also see the idea behind Petrosian's rook e8, bishop f8 plan. A great defensive player, he already knew, and he kind of already see the way that things could be developing, and so he protected this g7 square in advance. But what another idea behind Spassky's setup is that besides a checking idea, the queen on g2 has a defensive idea. Petrosian would be happy to start a check on the queen side since white doesn't have any immediate threats right now. But from g2, queen delivers a blow from the ambush. And by playing e5, white attacks the knight on f6, and he also creates a discovery check on the rook on a8. Once wins material and wins the game. So Petrosian has to make another preparatory move. He played bishop to d7, which is a useful move, developing a bishop, protecting the rook, and now he's ready to play b5. However, Spassky gives him no breaks. Despite the fact that he has an open space and pieces, a lot of pieces in the game, he continues to open more space and trying to bring more pieces in the game. His next move is f5. Another pawn push with the idea to open new files and diagonals. First, here is a question to all of our listeners. What if black will take this pawn? And the answer is that at this point, white has a very flashy, great tactical move. He can play here queen to g6. The queen cannot be taken because the pawn is penned by the bishop. And with this queen g6 move, white creates three threats at the same time. He's attacking f7 pawn with the queen and the bishop. He's attacking the knight on f6 because of the pen on the g file. And just in case, he's also threatening queen takes h6, which is kind of a minor threat. Two other threats are good enough. Move like this shows the power of open files and diagonals. You can play unexpected moves because there are all kinds of pens in those types of situations. By the way, the same move probably could be played in the case of e5. So now it's understandable why Petrosian played this move king h8. He tries to get away from all those pens on the g file and on a2 g8 diagonal. What is Spassky's next move? Very simple. He pushed f5 so that he can open the file. So he puts his rook on this open file. And after Petrosian played queen d8, the idea of which we will see later, he opens this f file for his rook. I even would think that taking on e6 would be a little bit more straightforward and maybe even stronger than to put rook on f1 first. But one way or another, he did play rook f1, and then he opened the file. By the way, let's go back and see why Petrosian played queen d8. If Petrosian would play b5, white would for sure take, pawn takes, and now white to move and win. And the winning move is rook takes f6. This way, he utilizes the open g file, g takes f6, queen g8 checkmate. So now we can see why Petrosian played queen to d8. F takes e6, f takes e6 And now white has even more space, and it looks like all white pieces are in the game now. But when you play against a very good defensive player, to win is not easy at all. And despite the fact that Spassky has all those open files and diagonals, and he has so many pieces in that check, it's still not enough. Which white's piece do you think is still not in that check? Scan the board, look at all white pieces, which one is not in that check yet? If you mentioned the knight on c3, you were right. This knight is not in that check. What do you think is the best way to bring this knight on the king side, to bring this knight in that check? If your answer is knight e2, knight f4, knight g6, it's a pretty good answer. It would be a very good way to bring this knight in the game. But we're talking about world-class grandmaster, and matter of fact, this was a match which brought Spassky a world championship title. So at this point, he was the best player in the world. And because of that, he found much more elegant and much more efficient way to bring this knight in the game. Without being shy of sacrificing another pawn, he plays e5, d takes e5, and now he puts second knight in the center. Knight to e4. First question, what is happening if black takes this knight? The answer is really simple. After we saw rook takes f6 just a couple of moves ago, we can see that here this is easy checkmate. However, black can reverse the moves order and take this knight first with the idea to take knight on d4 on the next move. But here white also has a simple checkmate in 2. Rook takes bishop, rook takes rook, queen takes g7, checkmate. So black's position becomes critical. However, Petrosian still is hanging on. He finds another move which defends against both white's threats. He plays knight h5. Now Spassky plays queen g6, creating a threat of this knight. And after e takes d4, he could take the knight on h5, but he sacrifices another piece in order to open more files. Petrosian resigned here, and the pretty finale was left out, but I will show to you what actually was Spassky's idea. Right now he's threatening checkmate on h7, so black pretty much has to take this knight, queen takes h5 check, king g8, queen f7 check, king h7. Now all white needs to do is to put rook on this file to checkmate black king. So he can play rook f3 with the idea rook h3 checkmate, and the only move which can stop it besides g4, which is useless because of rook takes g4, the only move which can stop rook h3 is e5. And here is a simple question for everyone. Checkmate in one move. Sounds simple, but for some reasons, not everyone can see this instantly. Many people say queen g8, which is not a checkmate in one because king can escape on g6 or h6, but a checkmate in one move is queen h5. Because by playing e5, not only black opened his bishop, he also opened diagonal for our bishop. And black king is checkmate. So this could be a finale if Petrosian would take on g5. Brilliant game, fantastic win for Spassky, and also a very good lesson on how to attack the king. Against a good defender, you gotta bring all your pieces in the game. You have to open as much space as possible for this game, and only this energetic and aggressive play will bring you success. This was Grandmaster Gregory Kaidanov. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.